環境唔適合，咪全部 say goodbye 啦，係咪？
點解要逼我滾啊？
好，嚟到2023年 Paper 1B 第11條又係寫文嘅題目啦。咁呢條題目呢，又係跨課題嘅，咁啊先去睇一睇啦。喺農業操作入面呢，某一啲農作物會以無性繁殖去提高生產嘅效率嘅。近年啦，因為全球平均溫度穩步上升呢，呢啲農作物嘅產量亦都有所增加。但係啦，一啲科學家就好擔心啦。如果全球暖化持續落去嘅話，無性繁殖嘅農作物呢，會因為環境嘅變化啦，同埋疾病啦，而面臨滅絕嘅危機。咁題目呢，要我哋解釋兩樣嘢嘅。第一樣嘢呢，要我哋解釋翻，由於全球暖化導致到呢啲農作物產量增加。嗱，咁有啲咩農作物係用無性繁殖去生產嘅呢？例如啦，薯仔 stem tuber 就係其中一個好好嘅例子啦。咁即係話，隨住全球暖化呢，可能啦生多幾粒薯仔，或者每個薯仔大粒啲。咁呢個係第一方面。第二方面啦，就要我哋解釋翻科學家點解有咁嘅擔憂。你個擔憂就係講緊，如果全球暖化持續落去嘅時候，呢啲無性繁殖嘅農作物咧，會因為環境變化同疾病而面臨滅絕嘅危機。何解會面臨滅絕嘅危機呢？咁啊，快手睇睇三部曲咯。第一部曲啦，思考時間有啲咩嘅關鍵字眼呢？我哋要留意嘅。無性繁殖、全球暖化、全球氣溫穩步上升、產量增加、環境改變、疾病同埋滅絕。然後啦，呢條題目有啲咩嘢我哋要留意呢？究竟個重心喺邊度呢？有啲咩要寫，有啲咩嘢係唔使寫呢？題目要我哋解釋翻全球暖化導致到呢啲農作物產量增加嘛。咁首先我哋就要將全球暖化同埋植物嘅成長拉上關係啦。咁植物點樣成長得到啊？咁首先梗係要整下嘢食啦。咁所以光合作用啦，喺個泥土吸收礦物質啦，呢個我哋要提啦。跟住另一部分啦，想提大家就係究竟我哋需唔需要去提及全球暖化嘅成因呢？咁啊，因為我哋主要去探討嘅就係全球暖化所帶出嘅一啲結果嘛。個結果就係農作物產量增加。佢個成因呢，題目係冇叫我哋講過嘅。咁所以全球暖化嘅成因我哋係唔使講嘅。嗰啲咩燒煤燒炭啊、工廠啊、汽車啊，排放好多二氧化碳啊，導致二氧化碳嘅濃度好高啊。而二氧化碳呢，佢又係溫室氣體，諸如此類，嗰啲完全唔使講。至於啦，二氧化碳嘅濃度其實都關光合作用事喎，係咪啊？不過題目都講到明，係因為全球平均溫度上升，導致到呢啲農作物嘅產量有所增加。所以即使你講全球暖化，你需唔需要講因為二氧化碳嘅濃度上升導致到啲植物嘅光合作用快咗啊？都唔需要。第二部分啦，就係有關於植物面臨滅絕嘅危機咯，尤其是呢啲透過無性生殖去生產嘅植物咯。咁啊，究竟啦環境改變啊同埋疾病啊，對於呢一啲植物農作物有咩嘅影響呢？咁當中我哋要提及就係無性繁殖嘅壞處啦。咁當然啦，我哋就要建基於面臨環境改變啊、疾病啊同埋無性繁殖有啲咩嘅關係呢？例如啦，自然界嘅選擇啦 （natural selection）。咁但係啦，當我哋要講無性繁殖嘅壞處嘅時候，咁究竟有性繁殖嘅優點又使唔使講呢？都係唔使嘅。咁啊，因為題目其實冇叫你去比較有性繁殖同埋無性繁殖，純粹就係話，喂，無性繁殖呢，有啲危機喺背後，點解啊？咁你只要噏個原因俾我聽啦。去到第三步，答題應解啦，點樣可以好好咁樣去將我哋嘅所思所想去表達出嚟呢？第一部分啦，就要去講翻全球暖化嘅特徵咯。而呢個特徵就同光合作用有啲咩嘅關係呢？同啲農作物嘅新陳代謝又有咩關係呢？而呢棵植物嘅新陳代謝同佢個成長又有乜嘢關係呢？當中你要提及嘅就係佢嘅生物質量有所提升，因為題目都講啦，農作物嘅產量有所增加。第二部分呢，就係有關於無性繁殖嘅特徵咯。當中啦，我哋要提及嘅就係無性繁殖同埋面臨滅絕嘅危機，究竟兩者有咩嘅關係呢？第二啦，就係環境改變啊，或者疾病啊、害蟲啊，隨住全球暖化持續落去啦， 究竟又點樣影響到啲農作物嘅生存呢？今日經過三部曲啦，大家快啲下載翻個短文攻略筆記啦。而家咧，我哋直接入題目咯。今次呢條題目咧係有關於一個個案啦，就係有關於全球暖化、農作物嘅生產啊，同面臨滅絕嘅危機啦。而當中咧，我哋係要作出解釋嘅。咁第一部分呢，就係解釋翻全球暖化導致到農作物產量增加啦。咁當中啦，有啲咩嘅概念係考我哋嘅呢？第一，全球暖化嘅特徵，題目講噶就係全球嘅氣温係持續咁上升嘅。第二啦，就係全球暖化對於啲生物、農作物嘅酶嘅活性有冇啲咩嘅影響呢？我哋都要提及翻新陳代謝。新陳代謝就係由合成代謝同埋分解代謝去組合而成嘅。第三啦，就係光合作用對於棵植物嘅成長又有咩嘅重要性呢？當中啦，自不然就要提及翻棵植物嘅生物質量咯。咁跟住啦，我哋就透過翻不同嘅思考問題啦，去建構我哋嘅知識同埋邏輯啦。第一個問題非常之簡單啦，全球暖化所帶出嚟嘅基本環境嘅特徵係乜嘢？咪就係氣温上升咯。題目講俾你聽噶嘛，全球氣温穩步上升啊嘛。當全球氣温穩步上升嘅時候啦，咁究竟對啲植物嘅新陳代謝有咩影響呢？就係令到啲農作物嘅酶嘅活性啦，同埋佢哋新陳代謝率咧都係提升咗嘅。咁關佢哋成長咩事呢？關農作物產量咩事呢？我哋就要講翻光合作用咯。咁究竟啦，如果佢哋嘅酶嘅活性啊、新陳代謝率增加咗啦，咁究竟對於呢棵植物嘅光合作用嘅速率有啲咩嘅改變呢？而呢個改變又有咩嘅重要性？當然呢個重要性就要拉翻去成長咯，就係啦，佢嘅光合作用嘅速率就會提升，而農作物製造食物嘅速度亦都會有所提升咯。然後啦，就去到第四個問題啦。咁當棵植物佢有一個高一啲嘅光合作用嘅速率，咁究竟對佢成長終極關係係點樣做個扣連呢？呢個題目啦，要考嘅呢就係成長係同一棵植物一個靜嘅食物製造有關。咩叫靜啊？即係話做多咗啊，從而啦就可以儲存喺佢個身體入面，就變成咗生物質量啊嘛，係咪？咁過往啦都去 MC 咧去講翻，究竟我哋點樣去量度一個幼苗嘅成長呢？先係最準確呢？咁當中啦，自不然就係去量度佢嘅生物質量嘅改變啦，係咪？咁當中仲有乾重同埋鮮重。然後第二個概念啦，就係有關於新陳代謝。點解我話俾你聽要合成代謝、分解代謝呢？係因為你有製造食物嘅過程。合成代謝，亦都去拆解消耗食物嘅過程，就係分解代謝。而家棵植物係成長得快咗，農作物嘅產量係增加咗，更加可以話到俾我哋聽，就係食物製造嘅速率應該係高過食物消耗嘅速率嘅。咁過往呢兩條 MC 咧，其實都係去講翻一啲分解啊、合成代謝嘅例子啦，同埋兩者嘅比較啦。咁所以答翻最後嘅問題呢，就係結合頭先呢兩個嘅概念，原來啦呢個農作物喺全球暖化嘅情況底下，佢製造食物嘅速率呢係高過消耗食物嘅，所以就係一個靜嘅食物製造啦。所以啦就多咗食物儲存喺佢嘅身體入面，所以就會導致到農作物佢嘅產量就增加咗，佢嘅生物質量就增加咗啦。咁除咗溫度影響呢個光合作用嘅速率之外，有冇另一套嘅邏輯呢？都有喎。今次咧就係考翻啦，全球暖化對於整個生態系統嘅影響啦。咁當中就牽涉咗非生物嘅元素同埋生物嘅元素，當然就係講緊啲生物啦，係咪？咁今次啦講呢個非生物嘅因素，其實都係講緊溫度啫。其次啦，我哋就要講翻棵植物嘅成長咯。點解農作物嘅產量增加呢？今次咧，我哋就係以礦物質嘅吸收咧作為一個起點啦。咁啊，因為棵植物除咗做光合作用之外咧，其實佢都會喺泥土去吸收礦物質噶嘛。從而啦，就將呢啲礦物質同我哋本身喺光合作用整出嚟嘅碳水化合物去結合啦，去整蛋白質啊，唔同類型嘅脂肪啊，咁其實咧都需要礦物質噶，係咪？講完礦物質嘅吸收呢，我哋就講下生態系統入面有關於分解者嘅角色同埋佢嘅重要性啦。咁過往啦， 氮循環啦、分解者啦，都係一啲好常見嘅題目嚟㗎。咁啊，快手睇下片溫下書咯。而到最後尾，我哋就要將分解者同埋植物嘅成長拉上關係啦。好，咁而家啦，我哋又利用翻唔同嘅題目啦，去建構我哋嘅答案啦。咁一開始啦，又係全球暖化嘅環境特徵，就係氣溫增加咗啦，題目講噶嘛。然後啦，對於分解者佢嘅活性又有啲咩嘅影響呢？同頭先一樣啦，影響棵植物就係佢嘅酶嘅活性、新陳代謝率增加咗。咁對於分解者，佢哋都係生物嚟噶嘛，分解者佢嘅酶嘅活性其實都會提升噶。然後我哋就要諗翻分解者佢哋要做嘅就係分解作用。咁究竟分解作用而家個速率又有咩嘅改變呢？呢個改變又有咩嘅重要性呢？咁我哋就要去1、2、3咁當中啦，自不然就係考翻大家對於分解者嘅角色或者個功能嘅概念啦。分解者就係將一啲有機嘅死咗嘅物質，例如啦屍體啊、糞便啊，將佢拆解成為無機嘅礦物質，然後啦棵植物咪可以吸咯，係咪？所以啦，當呢啲細菌啊、真菌啊，佢哋作為分解者，佢哋嘅酶嘅活性提升咗啦。咁自不然啦，我哋都能夠加快咗細菌同埋真菌所做到嘅分解作用，就將一啲有機嘅物質拆咗變成無機嘅礦物質，而呢個供應係增加咗，即係喺泥土裏面係多咗礦物質嘅，多咗礦物質拉翻去最後一條題目咯。咁如果啦泥土入面多咗礦物質，對棵植物嘅成長又有乜嘢嘅關係啊？自不然啦，就係棵植物能夠吸多啲嘅礦物質，再結合埋由光合作用所產生出嚟嘅碳水化合物，去整更加多嘅有機物質啦，從而成為佢生物質量嘅一部分。所以啦，對於一棵植物，佢嗰個大細啊、成長啊，都隨之而增加啦。咁呢兩個邏輯呢，我哋就能夠解釋得到全球暖化去導致到農作物產量增加咯。而過往呢，其實都有一條題目同今次呢一部分好相近嘅，就係2017年嘅 Paper 1B 第8條啦。嗰題呢都係講泥土入面嘅細菌啦，喺全球暖化情況底下，點樣去影響到啲植物嘅成長呢？咁啊，快啲睇下片溫下書咯。第一部分完結啦，去到第二部分就要我哋去解釋下，如果全球暖化持續落去嘅時候，無性繁殖嘅農作物咧，會因為環境變化同埋疾病咧，去面臨滅絕嘅危機。原因又何在呢？我哋用翻一啲思考嘅題目，幫我哋去建構整個答案咯。第一個啦，就係喺無性繁殖底下，究竟有咩嘅細胞分裂係參與喺其中嘅呢？同埋啦，我哋要比較個子細胞同埋個母細胞，佢哋嘅基因成分，佢哋嘅組成有咩同或者不同呢？咁呢一部分咧非常之直接啦。啲農作物要進行無性繁殖，自不然就要進行有絲分裂啦。咁有絲分裂所產生出嚟嘅子細胞同個母細胞有冇咩分別呢？原來係冇分別，佢哋係基因上一模一樣 ，genetically identical。所以啦，透過無性繁殖所生產出嚟嘅農作物呢，係同佢哋嘅親代嘅植物呢係一模一樣嘅，即係個薯仔 BB 呢係同個薯仔爸爸呢係一樣嘅。然後到第二個問題啦，從遺傳變異嘅角度去睇，無性繁殖有冇咩嘅唔好處呢？而當中啦，我想提你哋嘅就係透過自然選擇 natural selection 作為一個切入點咯。喺所有嘅後代呢，原來佢哋係冇一個遺傳變異嘅，所以啦，呢一啲嘅後代啦，或者呢一個物種啦，佢哋對於一個環境嘅轉變呢，係較為難去適應嘅，因為佢本身就喺呢個環境生存得好好，而大家呢又冇乜變異喎。咁即係話啦，佢 keep 住喺呢個環境唔變就好地地啫，一變嘅時候啦，就有機會唔適合佢嘅生存啦。又或者咧，你可以講翻佢嗰個親代嘅植物同埋佢嘅後代咧，如果面對環境改變一個唔適當嘅環境底下咧，其實佢哋都會受到威脅嘅。咁啊，因為親代植物同埋後代咧係一模一樣啊嘛。喺全球暖化底下啦，我哋經常會面對一啲極端嘅天氣。好曬啊，好熱啊，好乾啊，大風大雨啊，諸如此類。咁如果你嘅植物係冇基因遺傳變異嘅，即係全部真係一模一樣樣嘅，環境適合咪適合咯，環境唔適合咪全部 say goodbye 啦，係咪？個環境變化仲有疾病啊嘛。咁究竟啦，喺全球暖化底下嗰啲病原體啊、害蟲啊，又會受到咩影響呢？ 聽得好多噶啦，全球暖化底下呢，其實疫症係容易啲肆虐噶。咁啊，因為啦，病原體啊或者啲害蟲啦，佢哋變得更加活躍，繁殖得更加快，啲病菌嘅數量呢就會急劇咁上升，亦都增加咗去感染啲植物嘅機會啦，係咪？但係講到嚟呢度都唔夠喎，因為題目講噶嘛，佢哋會面臨滅絕嘅危機。究竟點解親代同埋後代佢哋係冇基因嘅遺傳變異，再加埋環境又會改變，再加埋啲病原體害蟲又更加活躍，繁殖得更加快，就係原來只要你哋基因係一模一樣嘅時候，你哋係更加容易受到疾病嘅感染同埋害蟲攻擊。用疾病為例，如果啦，你哋喺個親代同埋後代之間，你哋係有個基因遺傳變異，每個個體係有分別的話，咁如果有一啲疾病病原體去入侵嗰啲植物啦，感染佢哋啦，如果有啲植物佢個抵抗力係較為高嘅，佢咪生存到落嚟咯。咁如果有一啲植物佢哋抵抗力係較為弱嘅，佢咪 say goodbye 咯。咁所以喺咁嘅情況底下，係咪有得篩選，有得自然嘅選擇啦？但係而家嘅情況就係你哋一模一樣啊嘛，即係話啦，唔感染你唔病好地地，一感染你病嘅話，全部都會病，咁所以就會一鑊熟啦。害蟲都一樣，佢能唔能夠產生到一啲物質去驅趕啲害蟲嘅呢？咁如果啦，你哋有基因遺傳變異嘅，可能有一啲植物呢能夠產生多啲嗰啲物質去驅趕啲害蟲，但係有啲呢就少啲嘅。咁到頭來啦，能夠製造多啲化學物質去驅趕啲害蟲嘅農作物，佢咪有得生存咯，自然選擇咗佢啊嘛，係咪？但係而家都係嗰句啦，你冇得揀啊，因為大家係有機會一齊咁渣，咁即係話啦，我食得你嘅時候，我都食得你隔離嗰棵啦，咁咪即係有機會又係全部死清光啦。好，又嚟到一點出發啦。今次嘅題目呢，就由無性繁殖開始嘅，咁亦都啦冇問太多有關於營養繁殖題目，係有考到有絲分裂嘅。咁下次啦，可能又問下你減數分裂啦，同埋有性無性繁殖兩者有咩嘅比較啦。然後啦，題目就分兩邊咯，一邊呢就問產量增加，另一邊就問滅絕啦。兩件事呢都係關全球暖化事嘅。咁首先，全球暖化同農作物嘅產量增加，我哋要拉上關係嘅就係酶嘅活性啦。咁過往啦，新陳代謝啊、酶嘅題目啊，咁大家快啲睇下片、溫下書啦。酶當中我哋提及新陳代謝、合成代謝、分解代謝。今次題目嘅顯現呢，就係製造食物同埋消耗食物。而今次題目講產量增加啊嘛，就即係話啦，食物製造嘅速度呢係快過食物消耗嘅速度咯，亦即係意味住食物製造嘅速率呢高過消耗食物嘅速率啦，亦都代表住光合作用嘅速率係快過呼吸作用嘅速率咯，從而啦就多咗嘢食可以儲喺個身體入面，成為多嘅生物質量啦。跟住啦就去到全球暖化同滅絕咯。今次嘅題目咧講到明啦，就係全球氣溫上升啦，從而啦帶出啲咩環境嘅改變啊，極端嘅天氣啊。你睇下啦，近年嚟咧啲風咧越嚟越勁，個個都話嘭嘭聲。啲地方越嚟越熱，有啲地方越嚟越凍，有啲地方本身凍又變成熱，熱又變成凍。究竟對動物又好，植物又好，會唔會構成一個威脅呢？好啦，亦都將我哋嘅有絲分裂啦、環境轉變啊拉上關係，就係基因遺傳變異啦。如果大家每一個個體都係各有不同、各自各精彩嘅話呢，個自然界係有得揀噶。你隻隻唔同啊嘛，邊個能夠好好適應到個環境，就能夠生存落嚟，繁衍下一代啊嘛。呢個係 natural selection，我哋學過嘅嘢嚟噶嘛，係咪？咁但係而家嘅情況就係，由於無性繁殖，佢哋係透過有絲分裂所以做出嚟嘅，親代同後代之間係冇遺傳變異，所以啦個自然界點選擇啊？咪就係一係就要晒，一係就全部 say goodbye， 係咪？咁呢個表咧俾埋大家，就唔係話要大家咧要呢條題目啊要比較無性同有性繁殖，不要。但係啦，你要知道啦，各自兩者嘅好處唔好處啦。而今次呢條題目，我哋就要學識揀啱一個無性繁殖嘅壞處啦。其實就係第一個。原來啦，無性繁殖所產生出嚟嘅後代呢係冇遺傳變異嘅，而下面嗰兩個壞處呢，其實今次呢條題目係講唔到嘅，係唔關事嘅。例如啦，無性繁殖呢會導致到過分擠迫啊，親代同埋後代之間呢會有競爭啊，關全球暖化咩事啊？關全球氣溫不斷上升咩事啊？關環境改變咩事啊？完全唔關事，所以呢個冇得講，講嚟都唔知做乜。啲疾病呢就會好容易透過親代傳俾後代， 咁呢個都係唔關全球暖化事嘅。呢條題目我哋係講緊全球暖化咗啦，令到啲病原體咧活躍咗，繁殖得快咗，從而啦就能夠好大規模咁侵害到啲農作物啊嘛，有機會面臨滅絕啊嘛，係咪？咁但係呢兩個原來係唔關事喎。今次去到最後尾啦，今次嘅題目咧係唔需要我哋講全球暖化嘅因嘅，係主要咧就係講個果嘅啫。咁下次啦，要你講下個因，你又識唔識呢？ 2023 Paper 1B Question 11 is the essay question and is also a cross-topic question. In agricultural practice, some crops are reproduced asexually to improve production efficiency. An increase in yield of these crops is observed in recent years due to a steady increase in the average global temperature. Meanwhile, some scientists worry that crops reproduced asexually are at high risk of extinction due to environmental changes and disease if global warming persists. The question is asking us to explain two aspects. The first aspect is that to explain the increased yield of this crop due to global warming. And the second aspect is to explain the rationale behind the concern of the scientists. What is the concern? The concern is that the crops reproduced asexually are at high risk of extinction due to environmental changes and disease if global warming persists. So let's go through the 3 steps. First part, thinking time. Any keywords do we need to highlight? Asexual reproduction, global warming, global temperature steadily increases, yield increase, environmental change, diseases, and extinction. And any precaution, anything we need to focus on, and anything is not necessary to write in the essay. First part, increasing yield of the crops due to global warming. Obviously, we need to put the global warming and plant growth together. And then when we are talking about the plant growth, surely we need to talk about the photosynthesis. It's the way for the plant to make food, and also the mineral absorption. But what about the cause of the global warming? We do not need to talk about it. Because in this essay, we focus on the consequence of the global warming rather than the causes. So we do not need to talk about the human activities, combustion of the fossil fuel in the factory, in the vehicles, a lot, and also the carbon dioxide concentration. We do not need to talk about the greenhouse gas. So what about the carbon dioxide? Ah, Mr. Leung, I know that carbon dioxide, the concentration, it increases, right? During global warming, because it's the reason of global warming. Carbon dioxide is the greenhouse gas. Yes, I know that. And carbon dioxide is also related to the photosynthesis. So do we need to mention that the carbon dioxide concentration increases and then it will make the photosynthetic rate higher? No. Because the question just asks us to talk about that, to focus on the reason, a steady increase in the average global temperature. We focus on temperature is okay. Secondly, extinction of crops which are reproduced asexually. So we need to talk about the impact of the environmental changes and diseases. And then we also need to talk about the disadvantage of the asexual reproduction to explain that why they are facing the risk of extinction. So what about the advantage of the sexual reproduction? Do we need to do some comparison between asexual and sexual reproduction? No. You just need to talk about the disadvantage of the asexual reproduction in terms of the asexual reproduction and in terms of the genetic variation is okay. And then we need to talk about the scaffolding. How can we present our idea in a logical and a systematic way? First part, we need to talk about the features of the global warming. How is photosynthesis being affected? What is the effect on metabolism of the crops? How is the metabolism related to growth? Surely, you need to talk about the increase in biomass. Secondly, recall the feature of the asexual reproduction. How is the high risk of the extinction related to the asexual reproduction? And we need to point out the impact of the environmental changes and the pathogens, microorganism, pests due to global warming on the crop survival. Why they will face the risk of extinction or they will die. So after we go through these 3 steps, so please download the essay writing worksheet, and then we are going to talk about the essay question. This question is a type of combination of the case study and explanation. First part, we need to explain the increased yield of these crops due to global warming. Any concept checking, we need to identify the feature of the global warming, and it's given that it's about the temperature increase. And then we need to realize the effects of global warming on MC activities. And when we are talking about the MC activities, surely we need to talk about the metabolism. And we need to mention anabolism and the catabolism. Then we need to recall the importance of the photosynthesis on the crop growth. And especially, we need to mention the biomass. So let's go through the guiding questions to think about our essay. First of all, what is the basic environmental features, the abiotic factor of global warming? It's given that increase in atmospheric temperature by the question. Then how is the metabolism affected by the temperature? Surely it leads to a higher rate of the enzymatic and metabolic activities of the crops. And then states the change of the rate of photosynthesis and the importance of this change. So we know that in the plants, the MC activities is higher. So surely it will increase the photosynthetic rate and the food production of the crops. And finally, we need to think about that. How is the higher rate of growth related to the higher rate of photosynthesis? And for critical concept is that we need to realize the growth increase in biomass is related to the net food production. Based on this MC, you can learn the concept again. How can we determine or measure the stealing growth? We can measure the biomass and especially the dry mass, right? So watch the video for revision. And after that, when we are talking about net food production, what does it mean? We need to compare the rate of the food production, which is anabolism, and the rate of food consumption, which is the catabolism, breaking down. Anabolism building up, right? So for the MC question, you can also watch it and then get some idea about the anabolism, catabolism, examples, and difference between them. And finally, we construct the idea. If we know that the photosynthetic rate in the plants is higher, so there will be a net food production, and it means that there will be more food storage in the plants, and leads to the increase in the overall growth of the crops. So it is the first logic. So what about the second logic? It's about the effect of the global warming on the ecosystem. And we need to mention the relationship between the abiotic factor and biotic factor as well. Surely the abiotic factor is the temperature. And then we need to record the plant growth in terms of the mineral absorption rather than the photosynthesis. Surely we know that the plants can carry out photosynthesis and produce carbohydrates. At the same time, the plants can also absorb the minerals from the soil and then combine the inorganic substance with the carbohydrate, which is the organic substance, to form other organic substance, just like lipids and proteins. Is also related to the plant growth, right? And then we need to realize the importance of the decomposer in the ecosystem. No matter for the nitrogen cycle or the role of the decomposer, watch the video and do revision. Finally, we need to recall the relationship between the plants and the decomposer. So let's go through the guiding question. What's the basic environmental feature of global warming? Increase in the atmospheric temperature, just like before. And then we need to think about that. How is the activity of the decomposers in the ecosystem? So it leads to a high rate of the enzymatic activity in the decomposer. So for the bacteria, for the fungi, they are the decomposer. What is the role of the decomposer? They are responsible for breaking down the organic substance, the dead matter, just like the dead body or the waste, the feces, into the inorganic substance, the minerals. So state the change of the rate of the decomposition and the importance of this change. So we know that what if the enzymatic activity in the decomposer increases? So it will speed up the bacterial or the fungal decomposition, and then it will supply more inorganic minerals in the soil. It's almost the end of the story. What if there is more inorganic minerals in the soil? how is it related to the higher rate of growth of the crops? So we know that the plants, they can absorb more minerals from the soil and combine with the carbohydrates to form more organic substance, just like proteins, lipids for growth, for development. So the biomass, the organic mass will increase, and it will lead to the increase in overall growth or size of the crops. So it is the two different logics to explain the increased yield of the crops due to global warming. And you can refer to this question 2017, paper 1b question 8 is also about the bacteria in the soil. And under the circumstance of the global warming, how do they affect the growth of the plants? So watch the video for revision. We move on to the second part. Explain crops reproduced asexually are at high risk of extinction due to environmental changes and disease if global warming persists. Guiding question and scaffolding. First of all, which type of cell division is involved in asexual reproduction? And then we need to compare the genetic composition of the daughter cells and mother cells. So in asexual reproduction, very straightforward. Mitotic cell division is involved. Therefore, genetically identical daughter cells will be produced. Or you can say that the offspring is genetically identical to the parent's plants. So what if they are genetically identical? And next step, we need to think about any related disadvantage of the asexual reproduction in terms of the genetic variation. And then the hints, we need to think about the natural selection as well. There is no genetic variation among the offspring. As a result, the offspring or the species is less adapted to the changes in the environment because they may prefer in this stable environment. However, when the environment changes, if they cannot adapt it, so they will die. So for the parents' plants and all offspring will be threatened when there is an unfavorable change in the environment, particularly when we are talking about global warming. What is following is the extreme climate. Very hot, very cold, very windy, a heavy rainfall, the unfavorable changes in the environment. And next part, how are the pathogens or the pests affected by the global warming? So they will become more active and then they can reproduce faster at a higher temperature. And what is the possible impact on the crops by the environmental changes and disease? So for the global warming, it will lead to different types of unfavorable extreme climate changes. And then for the pathogens, for the pests, they reproduce faster, they are more active, so they will really hurt the plants. And what if they are genetically identical? All of them will be vulnerable or susceptible to disease or pest attack. If there is genetic variation among the individuals, some of them they have a stronger immunity and some of them they have a weaker immunity. So for the natural selection, easy idea. For the stronger immunity plants, they can survive and then they can reproduce. And for the plants they have a weaker immunity, so they may die and be eliminated from the environment, from the nature. So it is a natural selection. But some plants, they cannot produce that a certain amount of chemicals to resist the pests, to kick them away. So you know that the stronger resistance plants, they can survive and reproduce. But now, if they are all genetically identical, it means that what if the environment is favorable? That's fine. But what about the environment is not favorable? Or some pathogens, they can really attack them, infect them. If they get infected, all of them will be infected. And then all of them will die. So let's talk about the curriculum mapping. This question starts from the asexual reproduction. Although it doesn't really ask you the vegetative propagation, but we need to recall some example. Potatoes. And then for this question, we also need to recall the concept of the mitotic cell division. And maybe next time it will ask us about the meiotic cell division and ask us to compare the asexual and sexual reproduction. And then the question asks us for these two aspects, increase in yield and extinction, and both of them are related to the global warming. And then for the global warming, increased temperature, and we can use the M-side activity as the linkage to talk about the plant growth, and then to explain the increase in yield. Surely, when we are talking about the M-side activity, anabolism, catabolism, we need to do the comparison, and then we need to know some example, and then do the comparison between them. This question, we talk about the food production and food consumption, and then compare the rates of them. And then we know that the crop yield increases. So it means the rate of the food production is higher than that of the food consumption. Therefore, there will be greater biomass. And then for the global warming and then the environmental changes, surely, apart from the global temperature increases, we also need to think about the climate changes. Very hot, very cold, very dry, very humid, and even the typhoon, right? In the recent years, we know that the typhoon, it gets stronger and stronger. Then we put the environmental changes and the survival of the plants together. We need to mention the natural selection and then the genetic variation. What if all the offspring and the parents, they are the same? So they are either selected by the nature or eliminated by the nature. And for this table, in this question, we do not need to compare asexual and sexual reproduction. We just need to pick up the suitable disadvantage of the asexual reproduction. In this question, we just need to talk about the offspring show no genetic variation. And what is the result? But what about overcrowding and competition of the resources occur among offspring and parents? We do not need to talk about it because this point is irrelevant. Not related to the global warming, global temperature increases, and even the environmental changes. No matter there is or there is no global warming, if there is asexual reproduction, there will be overcrowding and competition. And for the third point, transmission of the disease from parents to offspring is more likely. The same idea is not related to the global warming, global temperature increases, because when the parents and the offspring, they live together so close, so the disease is easily transmitted from one individual to the other individuals. And for this question, we do not need to talk about the cause of the global warming, but maybe next time if we ask you about the human activities, combustion of the fossil fuels, something like this, to talk about the cause of the global warming. Or maybe it will ask you some other effect of the global warming as well. So do revision.